down 5. Bryant goes to work. Bryant the drive. Oh! Kobe Bryant on a rack attack. Posey will defend. Oh! LeBron James with no regard for human life. Iguodala to Curry. Back to Iguodala. Up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. Here comes McCready. Oh, he just sucked the gravity right out of the building. I like my meatballs spicy. Irving and Curry, one-on-one. Irving puts it up. It's good. Kyrie Irving from downtown.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the third edition of the Hoop There It Is podcast. We're back. We recorded 2 episodes. We found out we had audio issues last time.
Hooray.
Hooray?
Yeah.
Just
We're
hooray
back.
about the audio issues?
So we figured them out.
Yeah. We did
right.
it. Together as a family.
Well, if you're back and you've not, this is your first episode, thank you so much for joining us. The gist of this podcast is that we all like to consume alcoholic beverages and talk about basketball.
Truly, we do.
Mm-hmm.
You get it?
And you shit on him for this 5-star slam dunk thing, and then you go and do that.
Yeah. It's better.
Everybody needs a catchphrase.
Yeah. Truly, they do.
Anyway, guys, we asked for on Twitter, and we have a Twitter this time. We didn't have when we did the first episode, is at Hoop Their Pod.
Hoop their pod.
Hoop Their Pod. And we got some reviews. Thank you so much. If you guys could, the best way to support the podcast is give us a 5-star slam dunk review.
God bless America.
And you can leave great things like this. Thank you to CMK0207, who said, please consider giving this podcast a listen. I have nothing but respect for the interest shared on this. I'm a Timberwolves and Knicks fan.
Oh, God.
This podcast helps keep me optimistic as we move toward next season.
Wait, he's a Timberwolves and a Knicks fan, and it helps him. Thank you for your review. Like, I really do appreciate it.
Yes, we
but
do.
like, I pretty sure we just shit on those teams whenever we talked about them last time.
But, optimism.
But hey, if that makes you hopeful, that's awesome. Keep going with that.
So maybe it's that because nobody else talks about those teams and we did once, that's the optimism. Like, oh, someone knows they exist. Right?
Sure.
Mm-hmm. We got another one from CheesyWiz254. I wonder who that is.
I don't
Please
know.
listen, Mark Cuban. We just wanted the Mavs to be good again. Strong Pod from Project Takeover Podcast. Keep pushing, bro. Flex. Metal 2006 said, what can I say? Your boy Anthony did it again. Went from wrestling to basketball, breaking down what's going on and being entertaining.
Oh, this is why you wanted to read reviews.
Oh, yeah,
because
sure.
they just
Yeah,
call
absolutely.
and congratulate you.
Hanging with Mr. Suitor.
Oh, Jesus.
Listening to all the boys discuss the current world of hoops in a refreshing way had me listening this all the way through. You're not going to want to miss the back third of the first couple episodes. I don't think I've ever enjoyed an NBA-driven podcast this much. And Shield24 says Anthony brings an infectious enthusiasm to this in every project he works on.
Do you even need us? Do you?
I mean, everyone needs a supporting cast, right? At least I have a better supporting cast than like LeBron usually does.
Well, usually, yeah.
So,
I mean, are you trying to
what
say that you're
cast
the
would you
Kawhi
equate
of
us
this
to?
podcast? Are you the Kawhi of this podcast? You just bring everybody over?
Speaking of Kawhi, this week's episode is going to be about how it is a players' league. And we talked about this yesterday when we were out at our local watering hole. We were discussing... It's a players' league now. It really is. And the Kawhi thing, TJ has some problems with. Go ahead. Welcome the prompt in here, buddy. Let me crack this truly.
Well, I'd like to go ahead and just clarify that my feelings on Kawhi are that I'm annoyed by his decisions. However, I do appreciate it because essentially, whenever you have a business such as the NBA, you want to get ahead of the curve in any way possible. And he's found a loophole based on the Players Association agreement and the collective bargaining where he can just be like, hey, buddy, demand a trade. Come play with me. My issue is not with Kawhi being a free agent and going anywhere. It annoys me, but I understand that that's completely fair. You can do whatever the hell you want. My issue is when, and I agree with Steve Kerr on this, that it's dangerous when you can have players demand trades even though they signed a fucking contract. Mm-hmm. Anthony Davis did it, and Paul George did it. That's... If you're a free agent and you want to go to another team and create a super team, fuck it. Who cares? That's fine. Within the rules, that is fine.
Right.
It is dangerous if you have players that are still have a couple years or even a year left on their contracts and they demand trades out for no reason. No reason whatsoever. Now, I understand Anthony Davis. He was disappointed with the front office. Now, I kind of get that. Paul George had no reason to leave. He had no reason to leave the Thunder.
Yeah, and what TJ's referencing is Steve Kerr came out this week, and he was actually talking about Anthony Davis demanding a trade going to L.A. He was throwing a fit a little bit in the media, and he's not wrong. I mean, to be fair, he's not wrong that it's dangerous. People do that.
Yep.
And Steve Kerr has gotten some flack because, they recruited Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant came over. That's a different topic completely, I'm sure we'll get to. But I do see your point. Anthony Davis left a small market team.
Yep.
There's no money for him there. Dude wants to be, I don't really feel like he appears in very many major advertising campaigns, does he? You don't see him on commercials.
Was he on the cover of NBA 2K?
He's on the upcoming cover.
Upcoming? Okay.
But what team is he on now?
Yeah, exactly.
So, clearly there's something, right? These basketball players, they're creating an enterprise. We've seen it with LeBron James. Shaq owns, 5 guys, right? So, depending on where you are, you have opportunities to make your life after basketball. So I get it with Anthony Davis.
Sure.
But you're right with Kawhi. Kawhi leaves, and the whole time he had been recruiting Paul George. Joe doesn't agree with us that there's anything wrong with it, but I think Paul George pulled a bitch move.
I do.
And left. Russell Westbrook has been just fine for years and years, and he got traded for a different reason. But go ahead, Joe.
Well, and so it's not that I don't see a problem with players demanding trades. I do think that is a dangerous slippery slope to go down. But my problem comes in when so much flack gets given to Kawhi by certain members of this podcast, and LeBron's been doing this shit for years. He was the part of the whole doing backdoor things to try and get half the team out to bring in Anthony Davis midway through the season. And yeah, everybody gave him shit for it, but now I don't see why Kawhi should be so heavily crucified for it in the same manner. I mean, maybe from the stance of he's kind of the hero right now, so wanting to bring skeletons out of the closet, but let him be kind of a hero.
LeBron James.
What about him?
He's been in the league 16 seasons.
Right.
How many teams has he been on?
3.
Kawhi's been in the league for how long?
Oh, I don't know.
He's been on 3 different teams 4 times.
Yeah, it's still 3 teams. And one of them was his hometown twice. So, whatever.
But
Well, kind of. Akron and Cleveland aren't really that close, actually.
Ohio's only so big.
Yeah, you're right. Most states are only so big, Joe.
Well,
I'm looking up to see.
not everybody's Texas or California.
Yeah, but I can kind of see it, right? LeBron started this thing, the super teams. He didn't. Super teams existed since the 80s.
Well, I'm not saying he started them.
Okay, so Kawhi
Sorry,
was drafted in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
How many teams has Kawhi been on?
3.
4.
4.
Oh. So you're trying to say that Kawhi is better than LeBron, even though he's gone on more teams overall in a shorter amount of time?
When you say better, do you mean as a person
He means
or as a player?
person, as a player in the league that's making these moves.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think I fundamentally believe that everybody is shitty, but
Except Dirk.
except
Yeah,
Dirk.
except Dirk.
Dirk's great.
And Luka.
Goddamn
And Luka.
saint.
And Luka.
And Luka.
Luka's been around for 1 year, but he's only been on one team in 1 year.
Yeah, you're damn right.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Mavs fan for life.
Loyalty.
But so you have to think about some other things too, like demanding trades. This has existed for a long time, right? Kobe demanded that Shaq get traded when they had their beef. Kobe demanded to trade every time contract negotiation came up. Oh, I'm going to leave, pay me more.
It's a tactic, though.
It's a tactic for negotiation, sure. But he started it. LeBron, however, just joined his boys in Miami. Yes, the thing that we have an issue with LeBron is not that he did that. It's how he did that. It's that there was a special, there was a whole, they sat down, he did his decision, then he did the not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5 thing. It was the showmanship, it was the pageantry. But there was pageantry with the Clippers thing too, I think, TJ. I didn't watch it, but you had a problem with the press conference as well.
Well, I mean, Kawhi came out and said that he had been talking to Paul George all the way back whenever he was still over in San Antonio. They'd been in conversation about getting on the same team eventually. And, we could go into the conversation with tampering, but fuck it, who cares? In terms of... So the press conference that he was discussing, they discussed a couple of different issues. I did like what Kawhi said when a reporter asked him, how does it feel like that the Clippers are in the Lakers' shadow and everything? And he goes, well, within the past couple of years, the Clippers have owned that series, so I don't really see how we're in their shadow.
Right.
And it's true.
It is true. But that also adds, it's weird with the Paul George thing more than Kawhi than anything else, right? Because Paul George, they have been talking for years and years about gathering, getting together. Why now? Why did Paul George now do that? Easy. He saw the quickest path to a ring.
Well, that, and he wanted to go back to. He's been wanting to go to L.A.
Sure, but he could have gone to LA 2 years ago.
He could have, but why would he have gone then? You know,
Right.
I mean, the thing is that 2 years ago, Paul George was wanting to leave a team that he was having to basically throw on his back over in Indiana, and that was his biggest deal. So I think in Paul George's mind, he saw a path to being on a team with a superstar, with Wes, and then also, see, my issue is that he goes from Indiana to OKC. Supposedly, he said that the GM and him had discussions, and they were like, we're going to give it one more year, right? They both were under the understanding of, we're going to give it one more year, and if it doesn't work out, we're just going to part ways. And then the GM came out and said, in the most polite way, and he basically was just like, yeah, we didn't say that because that's why we signed him to a contract. Why would we want to trade Paul George? Like, that was never discussed.
They were handcuffed, basically. They were
Yeah,
forced to do
like,
it.
so Paul George's claim is, give it one more year. If you're Paul George, why'd you sign a 4-year contract if you're going to give it one more year?
Well, then this conversation isn't necessarily about Kawhi. It's more about Paul George.
Well, yeah.
Sure, they might
I mean,
have
Kawhi
talked.
was the puppet master, though. Like,
Right.
He manipulated. He tampered his way into getting the second fiddle that he wanted. And apparently, he said in that press conference too that he wanted Paul George to go with him wherever it was. There was somebody else he wanted instead. Was it Westbrook he wanted?
I don't know.
It was
I didn't hear
Westbrook or
about that.
Harden. It was somebody else. Apparently,
Yeah.
he had asked for somebody else wherever he was going to, and like Paul George was the other guy.
Right.
And so Kawhi, I'm guessing in my mind, he went to the Clippers and said, "You got to make a move for Paul George." I told Paul George to ask for a trade, and so he did immediately after it happened because it was like boom, boom, right? So these moves were already made
Yep.
because they were announced immediately. Signing, boom, Paul George. Would we wait 5 minutes at the bar for that to be announced?
I think so. Yeah.
Not even that.
Yeah.
And so that's where the issue is. Like LeBron and Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade were free agents.
Correct.
D Wade re-signed for less money. Chris Bosh signed for less money than he would have got anywhere else.
Was the first overall super team to start it, the Celtics, were all those free agents or did they trade?
I don't know that answer.
I can't remember if KG was a free
I
agent
think it
or
might have been a mix of the two.
mix. Okay, because I couldn't remember if KG was still under contract over with the Timberwolves or not.
Well, you had Alvin and the Chipmunk. God damn it, Paul Pierce. He looks like Alvin. He looks like one of the damn chipmunks.
I don't see that, but all right.
He always did to me. Anyway, Paul Pierce. Paul Pierce was already in Boston, obviously, so he just re-signed, and then I'm pretty sure Ray Allen was a free agent. I think KG was. I know he was.
He was a free agent?
Was for
Okay.
sure. And of course, he was going to leave Minnesota. That's a different situation too, though.
Did they trade for Rondo? Did they draft Rondo?
I think they drafted Rondo.
Rondo
Yeah.
was the rookie that they drafted.
What a
Right.
goon.
Yeah, and they wanted
But
to trade
man,
him.
when he's your goon, unless you're a Mavs fan,
Exactly. He was a terrible goon.
He was great for the Lakers last year, actually. I mean, he was okay for
Well,
the
yeah, I mean, if he's on a team with superstars and he can just kind of do his own thing, he's fine. But if you ask him to do anything more, he just does not want to do that.
But when people talk about the super team, though, like you have to look back even further than that. But how are they constructed? I guess like how are the Showtime Lakers constructed? Because that was your first real big deal super team in my mind.
I'm pretty sure they were all
But
free
you had
agents.
you had Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. They were drafted.
Right.
Who was the forward? Why can I not remember his damn name? That's not great that I brought that up and can't remember his name.
Da-da-da-da-da-da. This is literally our podcast.
Yeah,
Cameron, if you're listening,
he is.
do not tell us the name. We don't want to know.
Well, I'm going to look it up.
Ah, damn it.
But anyway, was that team mostly drafted or whatever? I guess that's the point. Like how it's a players' league now in the sense that these guys can just demand whatever the fuck they want.
Right.
They're like, hey, I'm sick of it. And Kawhi's taking advantage of it more than anybody else. Him and Paul George have. Like it's been a players' league for a while, but it's super dangerous now where teams can't plan for the fucking future. Like how can the Thunder plan?
Okay, see, they're planning for the
Well,
future
they're
with
planning
all
for
their
the-
picks.
But they're having to suffer losses in a small market team where that hurts you. That hurts you with ticket sales, hurts you with revenue.
Right.
You don't have as many teams. Like you don't have a star. You have no reason to be televised.
they have Chris Paul right now.
Chris Paul is not someone that they want. That's going to get you on television, though. He's not going to get you on TNT games unless they're just amazing all of a sudden. Like you got the whole rest of the West. You got the whole rest of the West that you can showcase on
Sure.
these TNT games. Why?
Yeah.
Why OKC?
Yeah, the